Welcome to the Andy's Physics Tutor. This video should give you all the information you need to get up and started with Andy's. So let's go ahead and get started and introduce you to the different parts of the user interface. Up here we have our menus. In the Help menu, this is where we have the introduction. This gives you all the basic information about how the tutor works. You can go ahead and check that out later. We also have the video. If you want to watch it again, you'll find it up here, and a manual that will give you all the technical details that you need in order to input information and solve it with Andy's. Next, we have our main pane here, the drawing pane. This is where the problem is presented. Also, we have answer boxes where we can input answers, and we have a place where we can draw the problem and solve it, because the way Andy's works is the idea that it's like your pen and paper, it's your scratch pad. You can draw out all the different bodies, figure out all the pieces of how it works, and then have it solve it for you. So that all happens right here in the middle. On the side we have a tutor pane that's going to help us out if we get stuck. You can collapse it if you don't want to see it, pop it back open by clicking there, and it gives you solicited and unsolicited hints. Right now we have one that's telling us to draw an axis, and later on if we get stuck we're going to click on this question mark and Andy's will give us a hint of something we should do next. Over here we have our tool pane. Works a lot like PowerPoint, as you'll see in a minute. You have a line tool, rectangle tool, ellipse tool, text input tool, equation tool, and a vector tool where you can draw on the z-axis for problems that are z-axis enabled. This one's not, so it's grayed out and you can't click on it. And you have your axis tool here. You can zoom in if you're having a hard time reading, zoom back out, or go to 100% here. So let's go ahead and get started with the problem. It says the swimmer is trying to reach a float. It's 200 meters away and it's 35 degrees north of west. Now we're supposed to break down this 200 meter displacement into its x and y component. In order to do that, like the hint had mentioned before, we're going to start out by drawing an axis. And like you see, I click on the tool, it enables it. I come over to the drawing area and I'm going to click and drag out. I can turn it and put it at different angles. So let's say I started out 22 degrees and I click off from my axis. I'm going to accept the default labels for the axis, so push enter, and it turned red. Now that's a cool thing about Andy's, you get immediate feedback on how you're doing. Red means you're wrong, green means you're right. If I click here, I get an anchor point when it's selected, and I'm going to drag down on the anchor point, and so it's 0. You know, your x and y are flush like that, and now it says that's correct. We're talking about a swimmer, so I'm going to select a ellipse body and draw it here on the axis, and I'm going to label it swimmer. Okay, so in the problem it says it's 35 degrees west of north and 200 meters. We have a direction and a magnitude, which sounds a lot like a vector to me. So I'm going to click on the vector tool, I'm going to come over here, and it's 35 degrees west of north, so north would be 90 degrees. Now I go 35 west of north to 125, and I click off. Alright, so I don't know exactly what to label this. I'm just going to put swimmer distance, see if that works. It turned red, and it didn't work. And now I'm stuck, and I'm not sure exactly what I'm supposed to do or what's wrong about this because I put it in the right direction. So if I come down here and I hit the question mark, you'll see I'm going to get a hint which says, I cannot understand your definition. So that means there's something wrong with my definition. If I come back up into the help, I mentioned before we were going to check the manual. Well, let's check it right now, because in the manual should have something to help us out here. And there is a section on defining quantities. So this is the blueprint for how you want to do it. And let's go ahead and apply it to our swimmer here. I have two ways where I can edit this. I can either click on the vector and then double click on this yellow box in order to edit the label. And I'm going to put let D be the displacement, which is mentioned in the problem, the total displacement. D be the displacement of the swimmer. Okay, turned green, so that's correct. So I can click off. Another way to change it is I could have just deleted it when it was wrong and then just drawn out a new one at 125 degrees. And D displacement of swimmer. So you can do it like that too. Okay, so we have that defined. Now let's look back in the problem. The distance is 200 meters. We just labeled the distance, so we can go ahead and click on the equation input, come back over here, say d equals 200 meters. Okay, it says I'm wrong again. Why is this one wrong? I just input exactly what it says in here. The reason that it's wrong is because Andes uses SI units, and you can find them up here in the physics menu. If I click on units, then I have a list, and the first one here is M for meter. Okay, so I'm going to close this, and instead of having 200 meters, I'm going to change that to 200 M, and now it accepts it. So you have to input units that it will understand. Now we need to break down the X and Y components. So I am going to click on my equation tool again, click here, d underscore x. This is how Andes understands the X part of the displacement, or the Y part would be like this. So we have our X component here equals d times cosine 125 degrees, and to know to put DEG for degrees, again you look up in the units menu. I'm going to push enter and it turns green, so that's correct. Just go ahead and move that right here. Let me do another equation. D underscore y equals d times sine 125 degrees. Okay. So I have all of the pieces broken down. This is how I'm going to get my x, this is how I'm going to get my y. It's 200 meters, and d is the displacement. So now I have to solve it. The cool thing about Andes is it solves it for you. And the way to get the answers, you just come over here to the equation tool again. If you click here, I just push d underscore x equals question mark. Push enter. There we go, we get the answer. Come over here, I'm going to do dy equals question mark to get the other. And now I have the y component. I've got all the answers that I needed, so now I can come over here into the answer area, click on the input, double click on it to edit it, and the x component was negative 115 meters. Enter, turns green. Okay, the y component, 164 meters, and it turns green. Now we've got all of the pieces done, the solver finished. All we need to do is click submit, and we have successfully completed our first problem.